If you've been around the Rock That Fitness world with me for any amount of time, you already know that mindset and understanding the way that we think is a huge part of Rock That Fitness and everything that I teach, because our personal growth is going to impact our health and our fitness in every single way and in every aspect of our lives. And so that's why I'm super, super duper excited to bring on our special guest today. Brad Bizjack has played a huge role in my own mindset. He is one of my mindset mentors, and I was introduced to him back 2 years ago, actually, this month, October, 2 years ago, 2023. And we have become friends, and he is also still a mentor to me. And I am super excited to bring him on the episode. I know that if you have had any type of struggle with your own personal mindset and wanting to shift the way that you think, because, right, isn't that the power behind the things that we do? And if there's anything that you've been struggling with in your health and your fitness, and you know that if you had a mindset shift, it would change everything, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. I am so freaking excited. Brad Bizjack on Rock That Fitness with Anna Rockstar. Brad, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, my friend. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited. Rockstar ladies, I am beyond thrilled for today's episode because we've got a very special guest, someone who has not only transformed a lot of the things that how I think has helped me with all of the things that I do and think, to put words to it and have better understanding to it with mindset and business, actually, but who has also impacted thousands of lives around the world. Brad Bizjack is a high performance coach, speaker, and one of my personal mentors that I love so much, and friend when it comes to rewiring beliefs, breaking through limits, and creating success from the inside out. Y'all know I'm all about that. So if you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things, but not seeing the results that you want in your health, in your fitness, in your business, ladies, or in your life, today's conversation is going to blow your mind. I promise you that. And Brad has a gift for helping people see what's holding them back, shift their perspective, and step into an identity of who they truly are meant to be. Buckle up, people. We're going to take off right now, rock stars, because you're about to get some powerful breakthroughs right now on this episode. Dun, 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 dun.
What an intro. Oh my goodness.
That's probably the best intro I've ever done.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's fantastic. I'm going to take that soundbite and just have you in. I'm going to play it before I go on stage anywhere I go and just, oh, that's fantastic.
Well, it's truly from the heart, Brad. I really am so thankful that I ran across you a couple of years ago. I think it's been 2 years now, actually.
2 years.
Yeah. October 2 years ago when I went through your Success Accelerator, and I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, somebody speaking my language, putting words to the things I believe and think and what's going on in life. And I'm so grateful that I came across you. And now I'm so excited because I've been waiting for the opportunity to share you with my friends and introduce you to my friends. And most of all, hopefully, I know that the things that you're going to bring light to and answer the questions that I have today are going to definitely impact those that are listening today. So yeah, I'm excited.
Well, let's do it.
Do you have anything you want to add to that intro, by the way? Did I miss something? You're an awesome husband. You're an awesome dad.
I think we're good.
You have had some amazing, phenomenal breakthroughs in your life and in your health and wealth and all that too.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, no, the intro's good. I'm okay. feeling solid with it.
Awesome. Well, now it's time to chug the jug.
Let's chug the jug.
Well, I don't have the jug, but this is my giant. Nurses call the shots. Says nurses call the shots. This is my big water cup that I fill up from the chug the jug, but I have a jug that I chug. It's a thing. I love it. So I got to thinking when we discussed getting together on this podcast episode about a week or so ago, which I was like, what? He said yes. Wow. And I thought one thing that I really wanted to cover today to help our listeners, but then the more I thought about it day after day, I was like, there's not just one thing. There's so many things. And so instead of just one thing, I thought, why not cover a few things having to do with, identity, the power of our beliefs, and even the idea of failure and success. So I've got some major topics here. And so if it's okay with you, I hope we can dive in and discuss these on a deep level.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So my first question is having to do with identity and self-worth and hustle mode versus hustle mode. And I say this, and I'm telling you right now, this is, your vibe attracts your tribe. So I know that most of the women that follow me are a lot like me and things that I have struggled with. So this is definitely one of those things where it's like, you think that you need to work harder, do more to be successful. And all of those things are tied into your self-worth. And this is a very big deal. And I think that we all need to just understand that it's a bigger deal than we give it credit for. So the question I have is, so many women over 40 that I coach, they tie their worth to productivity, checking off the boxes, like you like to say, achieving the next goal, always doing more. And so how can we begin to separate who we are from what we do so that we can truly feel fulfilled without burning out, if that makes sense?
It's a great question. I think to put a little pre-frame on all of this, one thing I want to make sure everyone here understands is that when we're talking about mindset, what we're not talking about is positive thinking and just being positive for the sake of being positive. Because, and the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of high achievers, when they hear the words, let's identity shifts and mindset and all of those things, it's like, oh, I know, just be positive. And no, that's not what it is. It's not just, if you're just positive for the sake of positivity, that's just as toxic as pessimism. And the reason why is because it's an avoidance of what you're experiencing. So what I really focus on is helping people get to the root cause of why they are where they are. Now, I am incredibly optimistic, meaning I face what I'm experiencing and then I do something about it. But in order to do that, we have to come head to head with the subconscious forces going on behind the scenes. And when I say subconscious, I mean under conscious awareness, right? So under your awareness, your entire life is controlled by invisible forces. If think about like gravity, too much gravity and you're crushed, too little gravity and you float away. Love has started wars. That's an invisible force, but the subconscious programming and identity is part of that. That's going on beneath the surface controls so much of your life. And so let's say, for example, that you logically know that you should maybe work a little bit less and spend more time with your family, but you have a belief that I'm only worthy if I'm grinding and hustling. Well, then you can be in the same room with your kids, but not be in the same room with your kids, if you know what I mean. And you'll actually fail at that. And you'll feel this lack of presence, this sense of guilt, this craving of perfectionism. And so when we talk about identity is a strongly held belief about who you think you are. And here's the challenge with this. And if you have a pen, you might want to write this down. The strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with who you already think you are. And so what that means is you might logically understand that how you're currently acting is not serving you. And it's not serving the goals that you have or the fulfillment you want or your relationships or your health or whatever it is. But on a subconscious level, the brain will fight and claw to keep what is familiar the same because your mind is a survival mechanism and its job is to keep you safe. So if there's anything unfamiliar, anything new, then the brain fights it and doesn't want to change. And so I'm giving all that as a little context for what we're about to talk about with identity and self-worth versus hustle and grind. And these things are perceived as like two opposite sides of things. Well, if someone is consistently hustling and grinding and going after it all the time. I want something to understand is that hard work does go into your goals and dreams, but it's not the only thing. And if working harder were the only key to success, then anybody that worked hard and hustled would have everything they want in life. And clearly that's not the case, right? Plus, you know people that still work hard, but they have an amazing quality of life. And so it's not working harder. There's got to be something else at play. And so I've kind of seen that when people are struggling with self-worth, they tend to try to prove that they are worthy through more grind, more effort, more perfection, more hustle. But no amount of achievement, no amount of success will ever make you more worthy than you already are. It doesn't make more money, lose weight, gain muscle, whatever it is, whatever your goals are, it does not matter. It will never make you more worthy than you've always been. And so it's fighting a losing battle. Worth equals self-love over time. It's an equation. And so I want you to ask yourself how often you celebrate yourself. And if the answer to that is very, very little, you will find that your feelings, sensations of self-worth are lower. But the more you celebrate yourself, the more worth you have. And the more worth you have, the less you crave perfection. The less you crave perfection, the less you think you have to grind it out in order to prove that you are enough. Because one thing I can promise you is that if you are valuing perfection at a very high level, that means your sense of worth will become a moving target and nothing you do will ever feel like enough. And so we need to change how we see what is possible for ourselves. And if we identify as a hard worker, nothing wrong with being a hard worker, but perhaps we could expand that identity to allow ourselves to experience more joy, more fulfillment. And last piece on this that I think will serve everyone here. I want you to think about what emotions you think you will feel when you have hustled to the level of achievement that you want. Whatever it is, freedom, happiness, fulfillment, joy, then I can take a break, then I can relax. Well, what that means is you are actually giving all of your power away to whatever outcome you're looking for. And if you give your power away to whatever outcome you're looking for, you have no power to change your circumstances. So you're actually just leaking personal power and then thinking if I grind more at what's not working, somehow I'm going to change my level of success. It doesn't work that way. And so if we think about what's actually going to yield results, if we step into the common sense corner for a second, right? What's actually going to get you more creativity, more energy, more possibility? The person that is stressed, overwhelmed, overworked, exhausted, or the person that's fulfilled and grateful and passionate and happy, right? So if we view fulfillment as a fuel source for achievement, as opposed to an outcome from achievement, it takes the pressure off of needing to get somewhere before we allow fulfillment. Now, there's strategies and processes on how to do all of that stuff, but hustle mode and never relaxing and never filling your cup is the fastest way to burnout. I've lived this so many times. If you have a NASCAR, right, going around a track at 200 miles an hour and it never pulls into a pit stop, the car's going to explode, right? There's masculine and feminine to literally everything that you do. And if you don't know what that means, like there's opposite energies at play all the time, right? So if you are an achiever and you likely identify as an achiever and you think the more I do, then I can have a goal. And once I have a goal, then I'll be successful, be happy, whatever it is. You are living in masculine energy, right? Nothing wrong with masculine energy. Everyone has masculine energy. Everyone needs to deploy masculine energy. That's the action of doing, accomplishment, all of those things, right? But there's something, I learned this maybe 3 years ago. There's something called law of duality.
Yeah, duality. I was thinking that when you said that.
And the law of duality basically means that there's an opposite to everything. And so if the feminine energy, which is the feeling, the emotions, the being, the sensations of self-worth are not at play while you are doing all of the things, you are literally repelling what you want most. And this gets a lot of achievers really stressed out because they're doing all the things, but they're not getting the results. So we need the belief work, the sensations, the self-worth work, and the action combined, not just being weighed over to one side. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. You need both. Everything has, like you said, the duality, positive, negative, daylight, nighttime, all the, yeah. And so when you say there's ways to do this. Is there something like, if somebody's thinking, I'm someone who has to work harder,
Mm-hmm.
into how can we take that into I'm already worthy and successful and still pursue goals without the pressure and the guilt? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, what are some practical ways to shift the identity? Maybe a couple
well,
of ideas.
so an identity is a belief of who you think you are, right? And so there's two ways to look at this. One is doing work on the actual subconscious beliefs of I need to work harder in order to prove my worth. And there's many ways to break a belief, right? One of which is looking at the consequences of what happens if you keep on living that way. And if you continue believing that you have to hustle and grind, fast forward that out 2, 5, 10 years from now. Who have you hurt? Who's no longer in your life? What relationship do you have with your kids? How is your health? Like, what does it look like? And there's a great movie called A Christmas Carol, where Ebenezer Scrooge, he's a total butthead to everyone around him, until one night, 3 neuroassociative conditioning specialists showed up at his house, right? The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. And they linked pain to how he was living up until now, how he is currently living, and what his life will look like if he keeps living that way. And so all of a sudden he recognized that, oh my gosh, there is pain everywhere if I continue living that way. And there's other ways to break a belief. But if you have a belief that says, I need to hustle to prove my worth, we need to see what it's costing us. And if it's all you've ever known, remember, the brain's a survival mechanism. It relies on what is familiar, so it feels like a threat to change this. But it's not. We need to take a look at the people that are successful and fulfilled, not just achieving. Because if you have achievement but you don't have fulfillment, all you have is failure. So that's one side of it, the belief work side of it. Another side of it, this is kind of a practical application. And it has to do with attachment. Attachment is the sensation of, I am my results, right? My worth is based on what I accomplish. And this works in a couple of ways. In the beginning of a journey, if you think that you are your results, you might downplay your efforts. You might downplay your goals to be more realistic and play it safe because you don't want to mess up. So you want to guarantee that you'll be okay. But on the other hand, if you're listening to this and you're likely a high achiever, you've probably accomplished a lot. If you're attached, all of a sudden you fear losing it. And you think it's going to disappear from you. I've worked so hard for this. What if it goes away? What if it's not the same? What if I lose it all? And we're in the sense of resistance of our existing experience. Whatever we resist, whatever we push against, we create more of, which is unfortunate, but it's what ends up happening. Whatever you resist persists. And so there was a metaphor. Anna, you and I were at the same conference when I heard this metaphor. It's the best way of understanding the energy of attachment. It's a metaphor of holding a baby bird in your hands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? If you're holding out your hands like you're supporting a baby bird, and this baby bird is your dreams, your goals. This is like a, not so practical, but just a way that you can kind of look at the way that you're viewing success.
Yeah.
If you have a baby bird in your hands and you're holding that baby bird, you need to support the bird enough so that it can gain the strength to take flight. If you just let go of the baby bird falls to its death, right? But what most achievers do, calling everybody listening, is they are valuing control way too much. Mm-hmm. And we can go into the subconscious reasons as to why if you want to, but they're valuing control way too much. So what they do is they end up squeezing and crushing that baby bird in their hands. So the baby bird dies. And so their dream dies with them because they were just death gripping the outcome so much. And if you view it like, I'm going to support this bird, I'm going to hold this bird in my hand, I'm not going to let it fall, I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to give it the strength, but not have this overbearing tension about my dreams and goals. That's the energy that we want to work hard with. And if you work hard from that place, working hard isn't hard work.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful, because then you're like taking care of this bird, you're nurturing it, and not squeezing the life out of it. I forgot about that. I love that. Yeah. And, and just, I'm going to go into the next topic, but before I do, some of the things that come to mind while you're talking about this is just, like the women that are working with their health and their fitness, and they are tied to this outcome that's so common. They're gripping tightly to losing all of the weight, getting strong, looking fit.
Yep.
And they're tied to that so much that they're not being able to relax and enjoy this nurturing of the daily things that we're doing and enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same scenario here.
100%. And if you aren't willing to celebrate the process, you're very unlikely to get to the actual dream itself. And so we need to be able to celebrate the little things along the way.
That is a tough pill to swallow, but so true.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be okay with where we are now and accept where we're at right now. That's big, right? Like embrace now, embrace what is, so that we can enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And you're saying that if we are not able to celebrate right now in the process, then we're not going to achieve the outcome. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes. Well, the only way to celebrate where we are now is to accept where we are now. And most people don't. Mm-hmm. Most people make where they are wrong. And that's your problem, right?
Yes,
because if you're making where you are wrong, then what you're saying is what I've got to work with is not okay. And if you say, I'm not going to work with what I've got to work with, then what else do you have to work with? Nothing. So you can't change your circumstances, right?
You never get anywhere.
You never get anywhere. So you're giving your power away to the outcome. So you have no power left to change it. And to the degree that you can accept what is the degree in which you have the ability to change it. So celebration only happens when you recognize that where you are is okay. And when you recognize where you are is okay, it doesn't mean that you don't have a desire to transform. It means that this is where I'm at objectively, and it's okay that I'm here. And once we recognize that, we can be grateful for where we are. We can celebrate where we are, and that will build momentum and energy so that you have the power and ability to change. So if you don't celebrate the little things, don't accept where you are, you're very, very unlikely to actually change to get to your goals.
Yeah, that is huge. I feel like that's the number one thing we need to get to. It's the whole acceptance and awareness, right? Because they always say awareness is the first step for change. So being aware and accepting it.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Okay, so going into the next thing I want to talk about, and hopefully I can ask this in a way that makes sense, but the power of belief and future self. So a lot of women know what to do. And I'm going to talk about health and fitness here.
You're going to talk about health and fitness?
I know, it's hard to believe.
No way.
Yeah, and when I'm talking to my clients, I'm like, I'm going to talk about mindset stuff, right? We're going to talk about habits and behaviors. Let's go. But so they know what to do. They know the tracking of nutrition. They know strength training and do their thing to take care of themselves, but they keep starting over. Like this is a pattern to start over. And so how does aligning with their future self rather than their current story break this cycle? Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I first want to meet people where they're at. And a lot of people face what's called a crazy 8 of perfection. And you try to follow a nutrition plan absolutely perfectly or whatever it is, or follow the workout plan perfectly. And that is putting so much pressure on yourself, right? It's so much pressure, so much stress. And what a lot of people do is they'll have overbearing amounts of perfection. I need to follow it perfectly. And then they get to a place where their nervous system can't take it. So they interrupt it with a limiting pattern. Limiting pattern might be binge eating. It might be drinking. It might be watching TV for hours on end. It might be online shopping, smoking, whatever it is. And immediately after they've disassociated to get out of this stressful pressure pattern, they get into a sense of deep guilt. And this deep guilt causes them to go back into perfection and start over. And you see this all the time. I'm going to start on Monday. I'm going to start on Monday. I'm going to start on Monday, right? And all that's doing is perpetuating a cycle over and over and over again. And so what we need to do is identify the dreams and goals you actually have and reverse engineer from them. One thing to recognize is that perfection is the lowest standard you can ever set for your life because it guarantees pain. There is no fulfillment in perfection, period. You will either never start because you don't know how, and you'll crave the how and study all the things. You'll tiptoe around the edges of a dream trying not to lose instead of playing to win, or nothing you do will ever feel like enough. So you want to interrupt that and try to feel better by eating all the things in this example of health and wellness, right? And feeling bloated and sick and all these things. So we need to recognize the consequences of perfection. And so if we're living in that state consistently, that is not reverse engineering from a goal. Because when someone has a dream or an outcome, the first thing most people do is say, well, how do I get there? What's the how? This is called the tyranny of how. It gets people into a state of, can I actually stick with this? Am I enough to make this happen? Will this ever work? Because they're more obsessed with the strategy, but they're not tuned into the feelings of their wishes. They're not tied into the beliefs that they would need in order to make those dreams come true. They're not tied into the emotions that they need to live in to make those dreams happen. And so they end up getting in the state of very low emotions, very low beliefs. And so even though they have the right strategy, it doesn't work, right? So if we want to get into the right way of future self-thinking, we need to reverse engineer from the dream. A lot of people will say, once I have the dream, then I'll act differently and then I'll feel happy. We're going to reverse engineer from the dream. So it's, what's the dream outcome? I'm making this up. I want to lose 30 pounds, right? Let's say that's the dream outcome. Awesome. What would I be doing if I had already lost 30 pounds? It's a different question than what do I need to do to lose 30 pounds? What would I already be doing if I had lost 30 pounds, right? And you'll notice that in those activities, there's no perfection. Cookies are okay sometimes, right? Like there's no perfection in there. And you go back and reverse engineer even more. Who do I need to be now? And who do I need to be means, what do I need to believe? What do I need to emote? What emotions do I need to live in? What do I need to feel? What thoughts need to play in my mind regularly so that I automatically take the actions of someone that's achieved that 30-pound weight loss goal, and therefore you will achieve the 30-pound weight loss goal. And so you want to reverse engineer from the future self instead of saying, I'll be happy when I get to the future self, or I'll change when I get there. And so this goes back to you we're talking about the power of belief. I want you to ask yourself this. What would you need to believe in order to achieve your biggest goals? What would you need to believe about food? What would you need to believe about exercise? What would you need to believe about yourself? What would you need to believe about possibility? What would you need to believe about your self-worth? And you might not know the answer to those questions, and that's more of a deep dive coaching experience to really get to the bottom of them. But when you have those answers, you can start going fishing for what's stopping you from believing those things. And when you get to the root cause of what's stopping you from believing those things, you can rip those beliefs out. One of the patterns of breaking beliefs we already talked about. And then you can start reconditioning, reinforcing new patterns of beliefs so that you automatically take the actions and therefore have the goals. Does that make sense?
It's a lot. It's a lot. Especially if anybody's listening and this is all new to them. That's like, whoo, that's a lot. The whole idea of a belief in itself is a topic to discuss. Mm-hmm. Like, what would you need to believe? And I think some people might get kind of stumped right there. What would I need to believe?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what we need to first look at is, what do you already believe? And if you find what you already believe, what you need to believe is probably the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
Right. So if you believe that, having a cookie is the end of the world, right? I made that up. Right? Yeah. Then maybe that a belief that you could live in is appropriate macronutrients are the ways to get to my goals, right? That's as an example. If you have a belief that says, I will never be enough, the antithesis of that is, I've always been enough, right? Yeah. There's so much power in this. And I think it might make sense to enroll people in why this is so important. Because beliefs reinforce themselves. And so if you believe, let's use the example of, I'll never be enough, right? If that's what you believe, well, then you tap into a very low level of potential. You do the same things you've always done. You don't change anything because you're tapping into a low level of potential. So the results that you get are the exact same as they've always been. And so if the results are the exact same they've always been, it reinforces the belief that you have that you're not enough. and the cycle perpetuates. But if you believe that success is your birthright, you tap into a completely different level of potential, totally different amount of action, different inspired action. Your results are different, and therefore it perpetuates the belief and makes it more of a conviction that success is your birthright. And so whatever you believe reinforces itself, and most people try to prove their limiting beliefs true. Successful people are consistently looking for what beliefs they need to break and replace them with empowering ones.
That right there. Successful people are constantly evaluating what they believe. Like you, when you said that, I was thinking about one of the common pitfalls of so many women that are working towards their fat loss goals is that scale, what they believe about the scale, because they say, oh, well, it doesn't really bother me. I know it's just data. I'm just documenting data every day. I know. But you can see this played out in their lives when the scale isn't doing what they believe it needs to be doing. And then their actions follow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so.
They know they need to be eating more calories, getting in their protein. But the moment they see the scale start to inch up, they stop eating calories. That's scary. I was just talking about this with a client also on a podcast episode that I did but they don't realize it. And so I think the part of this that I want to kind of unveil or like expose is your behaviors and your actions are going to reveal what you believe. So if you know you're supposed to be eating enough calories, enough protein to build muscle, to get stronger, to gain the muscle, because there are clients that are not just trying to be on a weight loss journey, but trying to gain muscle. They might be at an ideal body weight, but they need to build muscle. But as soon as that scale starts creeping up, the belief is that they're going to gain fat and they're going to be overweight and obese.
I see this all the time.
So you get what I'm saying.
So normal. Yep.
Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with, just the other thing. You're on a weight loss journey and you believe that the weight loss should be linear. Like you should just be like going down, 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 down. But the fluctuation is going to be there. And so you believe that if it spikes up, you're not making progress. So anyway. Yeah.
Your beliefs, like your behaviors are a result of what you believe. They reveal it, right? So we talked about identity. It's the strongest held belief about who you think you are, right? If you believe, let's use the example, I'm big boned or I'm healthy, right? That person is going to believe very different things about the scale, right? Someone that has a belief that says I'm big boned will say something about the scale, like the scale dictates my happiness, right? Someone that's I'm healthy has a belief that says, okay, like the scale is not the only thing in the picture, right? I'm making these up.
Yeah. No,
and what you believe dictates what behaviors you deploy. So if you have a belief that says like the scale dictates my happiness or the scale's changing, this is bad, then your behaviors will shift as a result of that belief. But if you recognize, if you're on the other side of this and you see that the scale is not the only piece of the puzzle, then your behaviors will likely stay in alignment with the plans that you already had, the actions that you know you need to be taking. And then once you change those, whatever your behaviors are, that dictates the results that you actually get. And so a lot of people don't see that this comes from what's going on subconsciously. And we need to work on, and I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to tell you what the right strategy is. Anna obviously knows way more about health and wellness than I do, right? She's obviously the expert here when it comes to strategy, but I am here to ask you, what are the beliefs that you need to instill so that the behaviors that Anna is teaching will naturally be the right next step?
Yeah, that's the deep part. This is the part, this is the reason why I believe so strongly and really this personal growth stuff. Like, you can have all the strategy in the world, but if we're not working on that,
it doesn't work.
What does it matter?
It doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, okay. So we don't have to beat this up, but can you share maybe a simple and tangible exercise that could help our listeners into the future self-identity, like on a daily basis, especially when doubt or old stories creep back in?
Yep. It's a simple question. And there's so many exercises on this, but a simple question to just give you something tangible you can do right now. What would you go after if you had 3 times more energy and 3 times more courage? And you identify what that is and ask yourself, what would that person that has those goals label themselves as? right? And once you identify that identity, you can then reverse engineer what would someone in that identity need to believe. That's a simple process that you could do to
Nice.
start the process of identifying what subconscious programming do we need to have. Now, this being said, it doesn't mean that it just automatically erases all the old stuff. There's a process, I teach this over a 5-day period, a process on how do you break the beliefs preventing that, but that's a place to start.
Okay, great. That's awesome. All right, so we'll go into this last topic, reframing failure and building emotional resilience.
Oh, my favorite.
So one of the biggest struggles that I see women or anybody in general interpreting a setback, how they perceive a setback. So like a missed workout, or like we were just talking about, a scale fluctuation, as proof that they can't succeed. So how do you recommend reframing quote unquote failure so it becomes fuel instead of frustration? Can it?
This stems back to the valuation people have on perfection and certainty, right? When people are trying to control the outcome and things need to be perfect, there's no opportunity for failure. But I want you to really think about anybody that you look up to in the world of success, health and wellness, whatever it is. Ask yourself how many of them have never failed. The one thing that you will notice is that you're looking at failure backwards, because the people that are the most successful are the ones that have failed the most. And so there's a reason why. Success comes from good judgment. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience is typically the result of bad judgment, right? So the people that are the most successful in what you're trying to do have just failed way more than you. And so if we view this like a pendulum, you know those pendulums you had when you were kids and you would lift the ball up and it would go and hit the balls and the other side went up, right? On one side of the pendulum is the success that you want. On the other side of the pendulum is the failure you're willing to endure. And so if you only are willing to fail a very small amount, lift the ball up a very small amount on one side of failure, you're not willing to make any mistakes, then the level of success you're going to experience is very, very limited. It's simply not going to happen. But if you're willing to, it doesn't mean that you're attempting to mess up, right?
Yeah.
But if when failure happens, you're like, okay, this is a data point. This is something I can learn from. And you're willing to experience a good amount of failure, you're going to have way more success. So on the path, like there's so many things that you will not fully understand until you experience them yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will try to prevent failure by over studying and over preparing, when the best education comes from action and doing and recognizing, oh my gosh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's how I would recommend looking at failure. And so I just view failure as a data point, what didn't work. So I'm on a training plan right now for a Spartan Ultra. It's a 31-mile, 60 obstacle, over a mile of elevation gain race coming up in 36 days. And my daughter was homesick all week with tonsillitis. We were up in the middle of the night, all these things. And I don't know about you guys, if you've ever done a distance run on no sleep, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's hard.
And so like I had to adjust my workout schedule. I did not follow my training plan this week. Yeah. It did not go according to plan. I had to change up some days, some runs, I had to decrease the length, some I had to increase when I had time. And it's like, okay, like I learned, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I better prepare for this in the future? So failure is literally inevitable, and it's one of the most beautiful things that you will ever experience, because you get rewarded in public for how you perceive failure in private.
Yeah. So many things come to mind when we're talking about the failure. You know, I think of women tracking their nutrition, because it can feel, if they're starting out, they're a beginner and they're doing this, and there's a lot going on. There's actually the time it takes to do it. Yep. And are you doing it right? It's a skill. And so I think that when we can just understand that anything that we're trying to get better at and improve, we just got to keep showing up. And like you say, you know, you could be tracking your food all week. You're a beginner. You may have missed some things. You may have not tracked accurately, whatever it is. And if you feel that you messed up because you missed tracking a meal, or you didn't track right and you just give up because you failed, rather than keep going, keep tracking, because the people who keep showing up, this is the thing I keep saying, is that that person is not better than the other person. They just keep showing up and improving. So the reps are there, they're practicing. And I think this absolutely plays into my own success in my health and my fitness, because I realized at some point along my journey that it wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up. 5 minutes. If it was only 5 minutes, I still showed up. Tired. I did it tired. All of the reasons that I could say that I was failing, actually, I was succeeding because I was showing up and getting better and improving. And that to me is the magic. To just
Can I use a metaphor that might serve everyone here?
Yes.
So I think this will be relatable. I want you to think about when you fail or make a mistake, how you treat yourself. Most people, they treat themselves very poorly when they make a mistake. But how long would you give your average baby to learn how to walk before you tell them they're meant to crawl their whole life? Right? So what does the baby do? It stands up, it wobbles, it falls down, right? And what do? You go over there and you kick the baby, right? No, you don't kick the baby, right? You praise the baby. You celebrate the baby for its failure. Yes. And the baby tries again. It wobbles and takes another step and figures it out. I'm literally animating this on camera right now for Anna, by the way.
Well, we're on YouTube too.
And like wobbles and tries another thing, and it gets one step and it falls. And you don't kick the baby. You celebrate the baby. And eventually the baby figures out how to walk to mom or dad. And the reason I share that is because if you're wobbling and falling on your butt, are you kicking yourself or are you praising yourself? The way to learn how to walk is to praise yourself when you fall on your butt and get back up again and keep showing up, like Anna said.
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. All of that. And the reinforcement that's happening inside of the subconscious mind, the program that's dictating everything we do in life. Like all of those celebrations, the more you celebrate every single win, the more you're just reinforcing that new identity. So emotional resilience. I know you had actually today inside of your momentum drop, you were talking about resilience and how resilience is not the ability to show up successfully and perfectly, but when you fall down, the ability to shrink the time between the time you have failed, fallen down, whatever it is, and get back up, that resilience. So emotional resilience, I think, is huge here, talking about failure and emotion, the emotional things that happen when we feel like we did it wrong or we didn't do it just right, especially high achieving women. So what are a couple of practical tools or mindset shifts that they can use in the moment when things don't go as planned so they can bounce back quickly instead of spiraling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, if we step into why emotions matter, would you agree, listener, that the emotion you are in dictates the action that you take? If you're in a state of anxiety or depression or overwhelm, you're likely to take a different action than gratitude, love, happiness, joy, right? That makes sense. So the emotions we're in determine the actions, and the actions determine the results that we get. So when we fall down and we make a mistake, it is not the falling down that causes you to feel anything. It is your perception of falling down that makes you feel something. Suffering is never found in what happens ever in life. It's found in your perception of what happens. Because let's say Anna and I are going out for smoothies, and I decide to open the door for Anna, and I'm like, here, Anna, go in first. And she's like, thanks, Brad, that's super kind of you. Why? Is it because I opened the door, or is it because of her interpretation of the gesture? Right? It's her interpretation. Because I could open the door and she could be like, I can get it myself. I don't need you, you pig. Right? She would never do that. She's a lovely person, right? But the point is that door still opened. And so this is why we need to recognize that events will happen. Your perception of those events determine the meaning you give to an event, determines the emotions that you're in. And so I want you to think about what emotions you would need to live in most often to take the actions that would yield the results you're after. And it might be excitement, it might be possibility, it might be fun, it might be freedom, whatever it is, whatever your answer is, then ask yourself a question. What currently needs to happen for you to feel that? And you will find some of the greatest limiting beliefs in your life right there. What currently needs to happen for you to feel, insert the emotion that would lead to the results that you want. Because then if you have belief systems that say everything needs to be perfect, I need to follow my nutrition perfectly, I need to get to the results, whatever it is, then anytime you make a mistake, your natural perception of that mistake or failure or whatever it is would be poor, which lengthens the amount of time you're down, which means that you're taking disempowered actions, which means that you're not going to get the results that you want. But if, in order to feel that way, you could fail and still feel freedom, still feel happiness, still feel joy, then the amount of time you're down shrinks. And if the amount of time you're down shrinks, then you get back up faster, you take more empowered action, and you get better results. So ask yourself, what does it take for you to feel the emotions that would lead to your goals? And ask yourself if that's actually fair to you and fair to your future.
Yeah, that makes me think about someone saying, for me to feel like what am I trying to say here? I would need to see some progress. What if somebody says that?
Well, you can view, let's define progress. Progress can be viewed as something on the scale. Progress can be viewed as a weight loss thing or an increase in the amount of weight lifted, or progress can be viewed as an action taken. It's up to you. And so if you view progress as an action taken as opposed to an outcome, then you can see progress whenever you want.
Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah, great point. Great point. Well, I don't know where to go from here, but I want to respect your time. We've been on here a while and we spent some time trying to fix our sound and stuff to begin with. I don't know what else to say, Brad. I'm excited for something coming up that, unless you have anything else you want to add about the things that we talked about, I would like to share something that I'm excited about that you're about to do for us coming up. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Want me to go into that?
Yeah, but I'm just gonna introduce it a little bit because, honestly, I don't even remember how I ended up in it. But that was like you do this. Is it a 5-day challenge?
It's a 5-day challenge.
It's a free 5-day challenge called Success Accelerator. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter where you are in your life, your health, your fitness. Amazing. It's a 5-day free challenge. And I did this 2 years ago. And the energy is amazing and you're amazing. And, you want to hear this? This is something, of course, I'm never going to forget. Well, besides the fact that you, during this challenge, give a lot of rewards and gifts and people win things, lots of winners in this whole 5-day challenge. I won $1,000. Do you remember I won $1,000?
You won $1,000?
I did.
No way. That's awesome. You were the winner?
I was the winner of $1,000 during that challenge 2 years ago in October. You bought me over, Brad.
Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that was, it is pretty cool. So anyway, Success Accelerator, and I'm excited to get to be a part of it this time around. I'm excited. So please, you share a little bit about it coming up.
Yeah, everything we've talked about today might sound inspirational or give you something to think about, or maybe you're perceiving success with a question mark. Am I really going about it the right way? I've been on, at this stage, probably 1,000 podcasts and group trainings and things like that. And I started to recognize a pattern that I would share all this stuff and it would be inspiring. And I would go back to the hosts a couple weeks later and no one did anything. No one did anything with it. And I was like, what am I doing wrong here? Why isn't this working? And I recognized something, that inspiration without action is delusion. And that means that we need to take these theoretical principles we've talked about today and we need to actually put them to work in a way, in a safe container that allows us to explore the depths of our psyche and see what's really driving us, what's the root cause of everything going on in our lives. And so I took everything I've learned over literally 13 years of being in the personal development space and training 75,000 people and just seeing what really helps people to thrive and what keeps people stuck in overwhelm year after year, burnt out, stressed out, not getting the results they want. And I put all of that into a free 5-day challenge called the Success Accelerator. It starts on Monday, October 20th. And the purpose is to help you see how these high performers achieve their goals so much faster than all their peers with less stress, less burnout, without adding more to your plate. So we're going to identify what it is your heart actually wants in all areas of your life, not just finance, or not just health, or whatever it is, all areas. We're then going to identify how your mind is currently wired, meaning what are the thoughts, beliefs, all the things going, emotional habits that you have going on behind the scenes that are keeping you from getting there. And then the rest of the week, we go to work on ripping those out with a bunch of processes that have an action with them so that you actually experience the breakthrough in real time. And you'll be surrounded by thousands of other people that are going through something similar yet different. And it's a really beautiful, safe container that it challenges you, it pushes you, and it causes you to think about success and possibility differently. And my promise to you is you will come out of that, the other side of those 5 days, a different person in the most empowering way. So it's totally free. Anna's got the link for you to enroll.
Yeah,
Highly
it's going to be in the show
recommend
notes.
Success Accelerator. It'll be so powerful.
I want to just kind of highlight what you're saying here, because we talked about it in this episode about how knowing and knowledge, they're two different things. Like, you can know all the stuff we talked about. People are going to go, oh yeah, I know this. But like the whole thing, if you read a whole book on how to swim and the laps and how do what strokes to do, and you know it all, but you don't get in the pool and do some swimming, you really don't know.
No idea.
And that's the same thing here with all of this mindset stuff, and you're inspired and like, oh, this is great. But then did you take action? That's the part. And you have lots of opportunities during Success Accelerator to take actions, which is really cool. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. And by the way, I just remembered, like, it just came to me while you were talking. I'm like, how did I get introduced to you? And I remember now because one of my business coaches a couple years ago is Jill Fit.
Oh, Jill, yeah, she's great.
And so I was listening to her podcast, and she had you on her podcast.
Yeah.
And that's how I got introduced to you. I was like, that podcast from Jill Fit. So
look at that.
So can you tell our listeners all the ways that they can find you if they want to know more about you and they want to follow you, maybe on social media or something?
Yeah, the best way would be the 5-day challenge. That's where you're going to get the most impact. So the most quickly. But you can also find me on the Gram Jam, Instagram, just at Brad Bizjack would be the other place where I'm posting consistently and sharing updates and things like that. But the 5-day challenge, Success Accelerator, is going to be your best bet.
Yeah, and it's great. And you're just amazing. So I agree. Find Brad, go to the show notes, and right away, go click on that, get in there. I think it's going to be wide open, right? Like once they click on it, they can just get into the group and stuff.
Yeah, once you click on it, you'll enter your name and email to get into the program. And then on the thank you page, there's a link for the Facebook group and all that stuff. And it'll be great.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask another person? I just want to ask one more personal question.
Sure.
I don't even ask any personal questions. This one's personal.
Yeah.
I'm always curious to know who a person's inspiration is or was. Like, who are some of the influences that have helped you become, to get to where you are and what you're doing? Who have been your coaches, your influencers in your life?
Yeah, it's a great question. I view everyone's life as an example or a warning. And you can't just have examples, you also need warnings, because warnings show you what not to do, and examples show you what to do. So I have a lot of warnings from my past, my childhood, people in my life that I love dearly, where I do not want my life to be that way. I also, in terms of an example, one of the greatest examples in my life is my daughter. And she is one of my greatest role models. And the reason I say that is because of how she dreams, how she thinks about possibility. And I think we're conditioned along the way to shrink our dreams down and to play smaller. And society says, sit down, shut up, get an A+ or you're a failure right when you're 12 years old. And I look at her and she wants to be a unicorn and Woody from Toy Story and Moana all at the same time. And I'm like, that's how you live, kid. So she's one of my biggest role models. In the business world, we both share a mutual mentor, James Wedmore. He's an incredible mentor in the business world and online marketing. When it comes to personal growth and development, Jim Rohn is the biggest influence that's ever impacted me over the years.
Jim Rohn,
Jim's incredible.
yes.
And Tony Robbins, I've been in his programs for years. So those are some of mine. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Brad. Well, thank you. Cannot thank you enough for your time. So awesome. Thanks for coming on to the podcast today. And yeah, looking forward to this Success Accelerator, y'all. Come get in here. Let's rock and roll in the Success Accelerator and see what you're really able to do. So thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Anna. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Rock on.